Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to the Tracy Show. This afternoon, I thought I'd start by giving Black history. You know how I like to teach every day and say you must learn something new every day. Well, I did talk about this woman right here on my previous channel, Lifestyle and Fashion Tea. I thought I'd bring her over here to my new channel, The Tracy Show, Tracy 2.0. This is Miss Danielle Luna, who is considered the first Black woman to cover the Vogue British edition. And in turn, we call her and consider her the first Black supermodel. There is a very informative documentary on her on HBO. Check it out. Let's get into it. Peggy Ann Freeman, born August 31st, 1945, known professionally as Danielle Luna, was an African-American model and actress who gained popularity in Western Europe during the late 1960s. Generally cited as the first Black supermodel, Luna was the first Black model to appear on the cover of the British edition of Vogue in March of 1966. Luna made several underground films with Andy Warhol beginning in 1965 and following the experimental film Polly Magoo. In 1966, she appeared in Otto Preminger's Skidoo, and in 1969 appeared in Federico Fellini's Satyricon. Let's start with her early life. Peggy Ann Freeman was born in Detroit, Michigan, to working-class parents, Nathaniel Freeman and Peggy Freeman. She was one of three daughters, Lillian, Peggy Ann, and Josephine. Her father had moved to Detroit from Georgia as part of the Great Migration. Her father, of African American heritage, worked in a production at the Ford plant, and her mother, of African American and German heritage, worked as a secretary for the Young Women's Christian Association and had been given the nickname Big Peggy to differentiate her from Peggy Ann, who was Little Peggy. Luna's parents married and divorced on 4 separate occasions due to their headstrong characters and Nathaniel's relatives' alcoholism. Luna and her sisters had a financially stable upbringing in a middle-class neighborhood of Detroit on Scotton Avenue. As a child, her father frequently took her on trips to local cinemas and in the summer to swim at the Knock Gym in Detroit. She attended the Detroit High School of Commerce, where she studied data processing, and Cass Technical High School, where she studied journalism, performing arts and languages, and was in the school choir. Outside of school, she participated in the local community theater and experimental concept East Theater. It was during this time, at age 18, that she began calling herself Danielle Jorge Luna. This was thought to have been her way of dealing with a turbulent home life when her mother began raising the family as a single parent. She was also said to have spoken not with a broad A or a French R, but in an accent she'd invented. Her mother said its tone was like she was singing. The name Luna has been speculated to have been chosen for its symbolic dimensions, reflecting the yearning to complete far-flung autogeny, or a reference to the space race.
I'm Danielle Zazia Luna Freeman.
What sort of racial mixture do all those names come from?
It's like a melting pot of, say, different nationalities, different people, everything.
At this time, she wanted to pursue a career in acting. Luna's sisters later described her as being a very weird child, even from birth, living in a wonderland, a dream. She routinely created fantasies about her background or origins and herself. She was known then as an aspiring actress. An early boyfriend, Sanders Bryant III, recalled first meeting her writing a play at lunchtime. She took roles such as Cherry in Paint Your Wagon, Ariel in The Tempest Chastity, and in Anything Goes, and Jean in Stage Door. After rehearsals, inspired by the beatniks, she visited coffee houses near the Wayne State University campus with her boyfriend, dressed in head-to-toe black. On the weekends, she often crossed the bridge to neighboring Windsor, Ontario, or traveled to other parts of Canada. She became known to Roland Charette, the managing director of the Detroit Civic Center Theater, as a kook because she had a habit of walking around barefoot, even down the street. During the 1963 run of Paint Your Wagon, she fed popcorn to pigeons where they rehearsed outdoors. Contrasting her time in Detroit with her time in Europe modeling, she later noted back in Detroit, "I wasn't considered beautiful or anything." A fellow student at Cass Technical, Verna Green, noted, "She was such a striking image, I couldn't forget her. She looked like an oddball to the run-of-the-mill student. Not enough people had told her how strikingly beautiful she was." She was not a fashion-conscious student, her attire mostly consisting of simple black skirts and long, loose sleeve tops. She stated that in her time in Cass Technical, she wasn't accepted because I talked funny, I looked funny, and I was a weirdo to everyone. I grew up realizing I was strange. In October 1964, she moved to New York to pursue acting and modeling and found work as a junior secretary at an electric cabling firm on Varick Street. After joining an actors union, she moved into an apartment on Broadway, sharing the space with a roommate. Her sister Lillian recalled, "She packed so little, it seemed like she was going to an overnight trip rather than to live in New York." In January of 1965, her mother fatally pow-powed her father in self-defense as he was reportedly abusive, coming to Luna's childhood home drunk and threatening her mother just steps away from the family home. Lillian witnessed the incident, acknowledging the pow-powing to be accidental. Luna received the news 3 months after the fact and stayed in New York, which is said by psychologists to be a common coping mechanism for familial loss and trauma. In 1966, she reported to a journalist, "My mother is worried about me. She doesn't know that I have already been hurt." For the next 5 years, Luna divided her time between Europe and North America. She professed during the filming of Salome in 1971 that she wished to quit modeling and focus on acting, and that she, Professor Lamiga, speaks of magic and love living in a deliciously surreal world. having become heavily influenced by surrealism and New Age thought by this time. However, she continued to accept modeling work, and in the 1970s, by 1972, when she moved to Rome, she was working for Danish photographer Gunnar Lawson, modeling for the Couturier Ted Lapidus alongside Rurushka and Jean Shrimpton on the streets of Paris, earning $1,000 for the day, which equals $6,250. That was back in 2020. In 2025, that would be equivalent to $8,258 per day. Luna's modeling career. In 1963, near Detroit's Fisher Building, Luna met English photographer David McCabe. McCabe suggested she move to New York City to pursue modeling. Her mother initially discouraged this plan, suggesting that she become a nurse instead. Luna persisted, and her mother facilitated her moving in with her aunt near the New York Harbor in New Jersey. In October of 1964, Luna contacted McCabe, and he sent out her photographs to various agencies. McCabe introduced her to Harper's Bazaar editor Nancy White, fashion photographer Richard Avedon, and senior fashion editor China Machado, while signed her to an exclusive contract for the remainder of 1964. While Avedon served as her manager, her first job as a model was shot for Mademoiselle, starring Woody Allen. In November 1964, Luna moved out of her aunt's apartment and into an apartment on Broadway in New York City, sharing the space with a roommate. In 1964, working as a model for Paco Rabanne, Luna witnessed American journalists spitting in the face of Rabanne because his fashion show used only black models. Nancy White had Luna's likeness sketched into an illustration for the January 1965 cover of Harper's Bazaar, replacing a pre-planned cover. Danielle Luna had become the first black person ever put on the cover of Harper's Bazaar in its then 98 years of publication. However, Luna was portrayed as ethnically ambiguous. The sketch was her first work of Harper's Bazaar and included 6 other illustrations in the January 1965 issue. Denzinger described drawing a total of 40 brush and ink studies for that session in a one-room studio apartment on Lexington Avenue. Quote, I remember that the Bazaar editors came to the apartment with the clothes, and that uniformed cops watched while Danielle modeled and I drew her. In the April 1965 edition, she was again photographed by Avedon in the What's Happening editorial, along with Paul McCartney, Jean Shrimpton, and Ringo Starr. The piece included a description of her as showing the tall strength and pride of movement of a Maasai warrior. This description was picked up in an article by the Sarasota Herald Tribune, finding the language and comparison deeply prejudiced and racialized. Herald Tribune writers explored and wrote of work prospects of African American women. In the same month, Luna received news of her father's death, but decided against returning to Detroit home for his funeral. Around this time, Luna also began having problems with Avedon. In an interview with Italian magazine in 1975, she recalled that the more successful she became, the more controlling and possessive her fashion photographer manager became. Luna's career began to slow down when she met with the color bar of print publishing at the time. Southern U.S. advertisers had reported complaints against the inclusion of Luna's images in Harper's Bazaar, pulling their advertising revenue, with readers canceling subscriptions. Designers Manbacher and Norman Norell refused to dress Luna in their clothes, and Harper's Bazaar owner Hearst Communications had stopped Avedon working with Luna after her contract expired. Richard Avedon believed that he was no longer allowed to work with Luna due to racial prejudice and the economics of the fashion business. McCabe later stated he believed that the magazine world really wasn't ready for photographing beautiful black women. Keenan wrote how the othering exotic black model trope perpetrated by white media creators that Luna breakthrough into the glossy magazine meant that from then on, a black model might actually have some sort of career in front of her. Yet extraordinary as she was, Ms. Luna did not have a style that other women could adopt. She looked more like she was going to attack you, wrote one black girl. White fashion editors used her and immediate successors for impact as freakish clothes horses on which they could photograph their outrageous garments. Acceptance no doubt boosted the morale of the black community, but she could not give them a look of their own. Following the death of her father and a short-lived marriage of 10 months in New York, Luna had a nervous breakdown and spent recovering time in a hospital at the end of 1965. 2 years later, she told New York Times that she fled New York for Europe at the end of 1965 when she found they said beautiful things on one side and turned around and stabbed you in the back. She would later remember of move to Europe. I wouldn't have to be bothered with political situations when I woke up in the morning. I could live and be treated as I felt without having to worry about the police coming along. Avedon, who had moved her over to the American Vogue in 1966, requested Luna again for a shoot around northern Japan featuring furs telling Dune Arbus, who had requested her specifically because of his association with her as an extenuated black girl, given there was no way of not being reminded of Egypt and not being reminded of Africans. People prescribed primitive racial script of the exotic black model which Luna had been portrayed in her shoots with him in Harper's Bazaar, which compared Luna to an animal as she was dressed in animal print. Diana Vreeland, along with Alexei Brodovich, prevented Avedon from using Luna as the only model in the shoot and suggested Verushka instead for the 27-page Great Fur Caravan shoot published in October of 1966. However, in 1966, American Vogue named her Model of the Year. Living in London, she was described in Jet magazine as the most photographed girl of 1966, challenging Jean Shrimpton for position and bankroll as the model most in demand in Europe's haute couture houses. By 1966, Luna had become an internationally recognized model, and in November of 1966, Luna appeared in Cosmopolitan. In April 1967, Danielle also frequented Trude Heller's in Greenwich Village and covered a number of albums for Blue Note Records, such as Lush Life, Mustang, A New Conception, Let 'Em Roll, and Easy Walker. Luna appeared in American Vogue in August 1969 and 70, and in advertisement for a colored contacts company, which she often wore. It was reported she changes her eyes to match her moods as she fits through Rome posh parties while picture making for Carlo Ponti. Luna moved to London in 1965, where she made a name as a model, emerging in swinging London as a growing youth culture revolution was drawing international attention. In March of 1966, about 3 months after arriving in London, she appeared on the cover of British Vogue, becoming the first African American model to appear on the cover of any Vogue. Her image captured by photographer David Bailey, who described her as extraordinary looking, so tall and skinny. She was like an illustration, a walking illustration. Shooting her for the cover, Bailey noted, I didn't care what she was. She could have been a effing Martian for all I cared. He thought the editorial staff at Vogue House was pleased with their selection of a black cover model, but I observed that the salespeople always had a problem with using her. She was chosen by Beatrice Miller, the editor of British Vogue, for her bite and personality. During the years up until 1977, Danielle Luna continued to model for many photographers and pose for many photographers in many magazines. She made her mark. However, by the time her career began to decline due to a variety of factors, including a shift in her career from modeling into acting and a negative reception from mainstream popular media, which chastised her dependency on drugs like heroin, LSD, pot, and her eccentric behavior. A designer for whom Luna once worked said she took a lot of drugs and never paid her bills. Beverly Johnson in 1974 was asked about her Vogue cover had been won by other black women like Luna. And she said, I don't know. You have to ask her. She doesn't wear shoes winter or summer. Ask her where she's from. Isn't she from Mars? She went up and down the runways on her hands and knees. She didn't show up for bookings. She didn't have a hard time. She made it hard for herself. Johnson later acknowledged in 2016 that Luna had made it possible for models like me and others, and that Luna is one of several black models everyone needs to know, being one of those legends in our industry, one of the shoulders I stood on. During the early morning hours of May 17th, 1979, Danielle Luna died from a heroin overdose in a clinic in Rome at only age 33. Luna was survived by her husband, Luigi Kanzinga, and her 18-month-old daughter, Dream. please take a watch at the HBO documentary on this fabulous Black American woman. And as Beverly Johnson says, we stand on her shoulders. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Leave in the comments if you've ever heard of Danielle Luna. Let me know if she's one of your top models, one of your role models. She certainly made her mark for the Black American culture. And again, if you didn't know her, as I always say, well then I hope you have learned something new today. Don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe. One more time. Don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe. Thank you again for watching and listening to The Tracy Show. Also, my Cash App was at the beginning of the video, and it is also at the end of the video. Any donation to the channel will be greatly helpful as I continue to do research and build my channel. Thank you all for watching, and do not forget to hit that notification bell so you know when I upload. Again, thank you.